All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Anti-Media. And this is my first time back in a few weeks, actually. Had some computer problems, and basically had to live at the Apple Store for a week. I had to go there so many times to get my computer fixed that by the end, I basically just brought a sleeping bag to the Apple Store and just slept there, and because I didn't know what else to do. So that was always lovely, and when these lovely little pressure cracks appeared on my display screen out of nowhere, like literally sitting in my bed with my computer on my bed. Computer is fine. It's a 2-month-old computer. MacBook. I haven't dropped it. I've treated it like a baby. Like a good baby. I look up, all of a sudden there's 2 pressure cracks on the screen, and there is a horizontal and vertical bar of pixelated noise along the left quadrant of the screen. My head immediately dropped because I realized the universe, once again, had decided to fuck with my head. Or tweak my algorithm in the computer matrix, affecting my program. Because apparently it's fun. I mean, in time, we'll probably be creating simulations, and you may be in charge of a particular character, and you may want to mess with it, see how it's going to react to certain things. Well, in my simulation, whatever futuristic post-human creature is in charge of me, they seem to want to push me to the absolute limit of my own sanity. And of course, the limit of my sanity is my brand new MacBook breaking. That's all I can handle, folks. That's the extent of Jake. Well, anyway, computer's fixed now. I don't have to sleep at the Apple Store anymore. But the world is not well right now. Well, I mean, the world is never well, but this is a particularly tough time for us here at Anti-Media, which I'm gonna go into here. Looks like I'm flying solo tonight. Ironically, DB, my co-host, is also having computer problems. So, but it's fine because I have a lot on my mind tonight. So, if you don't have a lot to do, stick around for the next 55 minutes because I'm going to explain to you why alternative media, independent media, is under unprecedented attack like we've never seen before. And this time, it's not just whistling Dixie. I'm not just sitting here trying to find something to talk about for the next hour. Now we're talking about a very palpable threat to the anti-media itself. And for those of you who have kept track of us for the last few years, we're kind of on the front lines of independent media. Unpartisan media, I would also call it, because if you look at most news stations, they're not unbiased anymore. They have an agenda. They have a corporate agenda. There's 6 corporations basically running all of the news media in North America. And there is an agenda that comes from the top. And it overlaps with the State Department and stuff like that. You can call it the deep state if you want. That's what we've been calling it. Then, of course, Alex Jones and the hysterical alt-right co-opted that term, and so now you can't even say deep state anymore without someone thinking you're a Trump supporter. But yeah, things are about to get pretty rough here, and I'm going to explain why in a minute. So as most of you probably know, the anti-media, actually I don't know if you guys know this or not, but so the anti-media built its considerable following almost exclusively on Facebook. Now, of course, the web page is separate than that. But the reach, our following of people, is through Facebook. Through the Facebook page for Anti-Media. That's where our articles get shared. And around the time I joined Anti-Media in about 2015, a typical post on Facebook, typical anti-media article shared on Facebook would get anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 shares. Even more likes or reactions. At the time it was just likes. They've since changed it to reactions. Okay. That's a significant amount of shares. Now, when I came on board, I wanted to try and help a little bit with the search engine optimization factor of it, which is trying to get organic traffic. Organic traffic is traffic that comes directly through Google, which is to say, organic traffic would be, hey, I want to look up conspiracy theories. You type up conspiracy theories, and if you've optimized yourself well, and those are keywords that are on your site a lot, your site would come up in the search results. Now I'm going to come back to this because it's relevant. I wrote an article for the Anti-Media about conspiracy theories, the top 10 conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. And for a while, we had it up in the first 3 results. So if you typed in the words conspiracy theories, my article would be like one of the first things you saw, which is pretty cool. All right. Now, cut to a couple years later, and we've now seen some pretty Orwellian behavior that's gone on. And the thing about Orwell is that when he wrote 1984, he was talking about government surveillance. He was talking about the government controlling the narrative. And they do, of course. But what's going on in our world, and something that I'm not sure if Orwell could have foreseen or not, was that we have a world in which the government and powerful corporations have, to a certain extent, become a kind of synergistic whole. They call it the corporatocracy. Others say it's part of the deep state, whatever you want to call it. And what we're seeing right now is we're starting to see that the free market, well, not the entire free market, but major movers in the corporate world are controlled to a pretty scary degree by the government. We saw it when it comes to surveillance. After 9/11, we saw a concerted effort among all of the major top tech corporations to basically collude with the government to pass along our records, our search results, information about us, our records from their sites. We're talking about AT&T, we're talking about, all of the major telecom companies, but then also you get into all the social media companies and, all the data mining that goes on and the profiles of us that are created based upon our online activity. That's something that simply didn't exist when Orwell was writing. His big brother was the state. Our big brother is a mixture of the state with powerful corporations that have more information on us than I think Oceania and Big Brother in 1984 ever had. And what we see is that a lot of what people see online, on the internet, and let's be honest, it can't be stated enough, the internet is an enormously powerful force for shaping public opinion, for shaping minds, for spreading propaganda, for coalescing groupthink so that people think a certain way, for manufacturing consent around certain ideas, for creating the political spectrum in which people are going to be doing their dissenting. If we can say that people do dissent these days, they're doing it within a spectrum that was created. Specifically, this is an idea that Noam Chomsky came up with called manufactured consent. So the government manufactures our consent to ideas by creating a spectrum on which we think we're disagreeing when really we're playing right into what they want us to think. And the best example of that really is consumerism. You can't buy commercial space on television to speak an anti-consumer message. They tried it. Adbusters tried. They won't let you get on TV and say don't consume. That's outside the spectrum because they don't want you to think about that. We live in a consumer society. We live in a capitalistic society. They do not want people thinking, oh, maybe we don't have to consume every day. So that's just an example of that. So we're in this, dichotomy here where the state is doing their thing, launching wars, and private companies are doing their thing, trying to make money off of us. And of course, with Facebook, of course, we are the product. Facebook isn't selling anything. Facebook makes its money primarily off selling our information to other companies, to advertising companies. The data mining that goes on Facebook is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Another big thing that Facebook does, or how they do it, is their algorithm. And the algorithm is important. That's what we're going to be talking about here, because what's going on right now, I would argue, is called algorithmic censorship. So the business model that Anti-Media created is basically through reaching people and spreading our message, sharing our articles through Facebook. What Facebook is doing now is they've decided to virtually eliminate publishers from the newsfeed, from their newsfeed. And of course Zuckerberg's doing this because Facebook came under a lot of heat following the 2016 election. It came under a lot of heat about people concerned with quote-unquote fake news, concerned that the Russians influenced the election by spending $100,000 on Facebook ads. I'm sorry, but if you can influence an entire election with $100,000 of Facebook ads, why the hell are Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton spending $1 billion apiece on their campaigns? That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Nevertheless, Google, Facebook, all the major tech companies, all the major internet companies really got raked through the coals on that. So what Zuckerberg is doing now is he's basically going to make it so Facebook is primarily just about you and your friends gabbing, you and your family gabbing. You know, there's going to be you're back to the old days of cat pictures, back to the days of the piece of cake you had for lunch. If you have a cool piece of quiche for dinner and you want to share a picture of it, that we're back to the good old days now where Facebook is going to be about quiche pictures and your dog scratching its ass. And that's it. You're not going to be inundated with the pages that you've methodically liked over the years. And conversely, those companies that have spent years accruing major followings will not be able to break through the algorithm and deliver their news to you because Zuckerberg does not think you are smart enough he does not trust you with your own page. He does not trust you with your own likes. They want you to be in a little tiny echo chamber. And they do not want you to be exposed to radical news or news that goes against what your group of friends think, what your family thinks. What Zuckerberg said was, recently we've gotten feedback from our community that public content, posts from businesses, brands, and media, is crowding out the personal moments that lead us to connect more with each other. This change, he said, Facebook is changing up its newsfeed ranking algorithm to start showing users more posts from family, friends, and groups they are a part of, and less content from business brands and media organizations. This change, he said, will likely cause people to spend less time on Facebook, but make the time they do spend there more valuable. Aww. That is so sweet. Zuckerberg is sacrificing some of the equity of his company so that we can spend more valuable moments together online. Now, the truth is, Zuckerberg got his ass handed to him by Congress and relented. He is a coward. He has the courage of a river toad, Mark Zuckerberg does. He's one of the richest people in the world. He created a social network that has changed the world. And instead of letting alternative news companies use that platform to share a message that cannot get out any other way, he has given in to the demands of the government, and he is essentially censoring people algorithmically on Facebook. Make no mistake, entire businesses will shut down over this. I don't think Anti-Media will be the first. In fact, I don't think Anti-Media will shut down at all, because the owner and head editor, Nick Burnaby, is a genius, and he's doing things for the right reason. And the team working together on Anti-Media is an incredible bunch of people, and we're going to figure out a way around this. But it's a major blow. Pretty much our entire business model has been pulled out from under us. And we have a plan moving forward for what we think we're going to do, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. But I can't say it enough. This is a cowardice move by Zuckerberg. And he's not alone. Google's doing it too. Twitter's doing it to varying degrees. But this is going to create less engagement over news and more engagement over cat pictures and cake. And apparently that's what's important to Zuckerberg. He sold us out. He really sold us out. He got so scared that Facebook was going to come into the crosshairs of major regulatory action by the government, that he said, oh, okay, here, I'll tweak the algorithm so that people don't see the news from alternative news media. And let's be clear, that's what we're talking about here. Because we saw a seismic shift in this last election. And look, I don't like what happened in the last election, which isn't to say I care too much about Hillary Clinton, but I'm not a Trump supporter. But look, this isn't even about politics at this point. This is about restricting access to information. That's what makes the internet great, is that the government can't come in and say, no, you can't see this, no, you can't see that, because that information does not behoove the state for you to know. That's what China does. And aren't we always blathering about how American democracy is so much better than China, because our government doesn't take these just draconian measures to restrict the press, to restrict journalism? Well, that's what's happening right now, except it's not the government directly doing it. They've conscripted all of our major companies to take part in this fleecing of information. It's really sick. But it actually goes further than that. It goes further than simply restricting the algorithm, as cataclysmic as that is to the anti-media. I wrote an article last week called Facebook, Google, and Twitter Announce Counter-Speech PSYOP to Keep Public Docile. Now, this is related, but it's a little bit different, but in my opinion, it's just as disturbing. So as a part of this need by the tech companies to assuage the fears of Congress about whether fake news and extremism is taking over the American population, they've gone further now. So last week, representatives for Facebook, Google, and Twitter, which arguably are the gatekeepers of the internet. Between Facebook and Google alone, you have, Google runs YouTube. Facebook, of course, is the face of internet, face of social media. To a large extent, Facebook, Google, and Twitter really control a lot of what is, experienced online. And what these companies, they went before Congress, they went before the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. And they told them that those three companies, Facebook, Google, and Twitter, are now going to be actively creating propaganda that they're going to target at people that are looking at or being exposed to extremist or radical information online. Let me repeat that. They confirmed to Congress that they will be targeting users who may be exposed to extremist/terrorist content and redirecting them instead to quote-unquote positive and moderate posts. Monica Bickert, Facebook's head of global policy, said, "We believe that a key part of combating extremism is preventing recruitment by disrupting the underlying ideologies that drive people to commit acts of violence. That's why we support a variety of counter-speech efforts." That's the word they're using for this, is counter-speech. Now, if that doesn't sound like something out of 1984, I don't know what does. Now, let me be clear here before anyone who would say otherwise. I am not pro-terrorism. I think it's probably a good thing to get out ahead of obviously we don't want terrorists killing us. And let's be honest, terrorists have gotten savvy in recent years, and they're definitely using social media to recruit people. But there's a very thin line here, and there's a very slippery slope when you start talking about extremist content and radical content. Because I would argue that this new counter-speech effort is going to go far beyond just targeting people who, who goes on the internet and like looks for a terrorist video? It doesn't happen. The way it's going to manifest itself is they're going to use their algorithm to restrict radical content of all kinds. And this is where you get back into the manufactured consent theory. They're going to create a spectrum for us, and they're not going to let anything outside that spectrum get on. Who gets to be the arbiter of that? Who gets to decide what is too radical? Well, Facebook, Google, and Twitter have decided that they get to be the arbiters of what is radical online. They're going to be using machine learning and artificial intelligence to manufacture this so-called counter-speech. And their goal appears to be to catch burgeoning extremists or people that are being radicalized online and re-engineer them via targeted propagandistic advertisements. Now, we don't know fully yet what these advertisements are going to be, but they're calling it, Google's YouTube is going to be using something called the redirect method. And that was developed by the Google Jigsaw Research Group. And basically YouTube, they're going to tap their search history metrics to identify users who may be interested in extremist content, and then they're going to use targeted advertising to counter hateful content with positive content. Now look, I don't think hate speech is a good thing, and I don't think terrorism is a good thing, but there's a very slippery slope here when you have the government and the major corporations deciding what we can and can't view. YouTube's head of public policy told Congress, "Our advances in machine learning let us now take nearly 70% of violent extremism content within 8 hours of upload and nearly half of it in 2 hours." So basically, again, Facebook, Google, and Twitter are going to be aggressively cracking down on extremist content. And, you know, we're starting to see a very strange trend here, which is the government the government and the corporatocracy saying, look, we're going to use propaganda on the American people. It's pretty incredible, but the use of propaganda by the government was actually illegal for a long time. In fact, the use of propaganda by the government on American people was illegal until 2012. Okay? And that's when, you know, the holy matron saint Barack Obama, who can do no wrong ever, wrote into the 2012 National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, and you know, just so everyone knows, every year you should be watching for when the NDAA comes out, because every year it's just an all-star team of fucked up propaganda. But in the 2012 National Defense Authorization Act, the use of propaganda on the American people by the government was formally legalized. Obama continued in that path in 2017, of course, right before he left office. It was right before, it was actually before 2016, but it was the act of 2017. And they passed something called, they wrapped it into that year's National Defense Authorization Act, something called the Countering Disinformation and Propaganda Act of 2017, which basically, I wrote an article on this, you can look it up. If you Countering Disinformation and Propaganda Act, you look it up, basically the government created a kind of ministry of truth, all for the, you know, ostensible purpose of countering foreign misinformation and propaganda, to create fact-based narratives. That's what they call it, fact-based narratives. So, in other words, as if there was ever any doubt of this, our government is actively creating propaganda to affect us, to change us, to mold us the way it wants us to be. And now the free market, which was ostensibly this kind of check and balance to the corrupt state, is now neatly enfolded within that dynamic. And now these corporations are now actively doing the work of the government to where the government before couldn't control us on the internet. Now those companies are helping to control them. And of course, it's going to get worse because with net neutrality overturned, the power of corporations, giant corporations, to control the internet is going to be off the charts. So what we're seeing here is really the death throes of the internet as a free and open marketplace of ideas. And I call it algorithmic censorship. because when the internet gatekeepers are using their algorithm to shape what people can see online, these are PSYOPs, psychological operations. And PSYOPs are legal now, and they're being used by the government, they're being used by the giant corporations. And it's really disturbing. You know, if I'd be lying if I said that I'm pretty depressed about this. I mean, I'm that's not unusual for me, but I'm depressed in particular about this because the anti-media is a very big part of my life, and it really depresses me to think that all of this work that Nick and us did to build a readership. The anti-media had over 2 million followers on Facebook. 2 million. It's over 2 million, actually, but nice round number. 2 million people trusted in the anti-media to get their news, to hear a narrative not shaped by the government, to hear the truth unfiltered by the corporatocracy. And now the corporatocracy is just going to come right in and say, nope, 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 nope. We couldn't beat you fair and square. We couldn't beat you in the marketplace of ideas. So we're going to cheat. And that's what they're doing. They're cheating. Yeah, it's depressing. But, you know, we can't give up. We're going to have to fight back, and that's what we're going to do. Fortunately, while there isn't really a suitable alternative to Facebook right now, which is surprising, and that's what Nick was saying. We were talking about this last night on air, and, you know, we always expected, I mean, we believe Facebook is on its way out. There's an exodus right now. People are leaving. They don't like it anymore. And it honestly wouldn't surprise me if Facebook was not the major social network in 5 years. But right now, there isn't another one. I mean, Twitter is pretty popular, but it's not even near the same numbers as Facebook, and it's also a different kind of social network. Twitter is just different. And it doesn't really drive traffic in the way that Facebook does. But in a kind of synchronistic way, there is a network that has risen up alongside cryptocurrency. Now, of course, we talk about cryptocurrency on here a lot. I'm a big fan of it. I think it's good to decentralize financial markets. I've invested in a lot of them. Bitcoin, Ethereum, about 10 other ones. I got kind of obsessed with it. And there is a cryptocurrency-based social network called Steemit. Steemit. And I'm telling you that because I want you to get on there. Steemit is where anti-media is going to go. Steemit is a social network that rewards posters and users with shares of a cryptocurrency altcoin called Steem. And it's getting pretty popular. Is it going to be anywhere near as popular as Facebook? No, probably not. But unfortunately, we don't have a choice right now because Facebook has essentially kicked alternative media off. The selfishness is so unbelievable. I mean, it's because the Democrats lost one election, Zuckerberg is telling hundreds, if not thousands, of alternative media companies that they can no longer use Facebook as a traffic platform. truly incredible. But like I said, we're absconding, so to speak, to Steemit. Now, I've already been on Steemit, and I post a lot of content on there. But I haven't quite figured all of it out yet. It's not complex, but it's in terms of using it for monetization, it's a little bit tricky. But there are people making thousands of dollars. And again, this is not through advertisements. This is not through paid referrals. This is through generating a cryptocurrency based on the popularity of a post, which is a very interesting concept, and it's one that I think is going to get even more and more popular over the years. And quite frankly, I'm ready for it because I'm sick of these companies like Google and Facebook being able to control. Now look, is it their right? Of course. This is Facebook's right to do it. They're perfectly allowed. It's a free market. It's a proprietary algorithm. They own it. If they want to do what they're doing, they're free to do it. Same with Google. Years ago, Google started messing around with their algorithm and made it to where I could barely make any money for my fringe paranormal site, the Ghost Diaries. Like I used to make $1,000 a month from ads on that. And then they tweaked something around, and now I make virtually nothing. It's fine. You move on. You adapt. That's just the way it goes. Are they allowed to do this? Of course they're allowed to do it. But man, their reasons are really twisted. They're doing it because the government said that they don't want people getting different news. That's all it is. That's what it is. This is not about anything more than the government feeling like they've lost control of the narrative. They weren't able to manufacture the consent anymore. They lost the ability to shape how people think about everything. And that was too much for them. So the king sat down. And by king, I mean the deep state. Actually, this is just Congress. They're not the deep state. They're little schoolboy bitches. But they brought Zuckerberg in there. They brought Google and Twitter, and they had to kneel before the king. And they said, we want you to change your product so that people wouldn't be exposed to the ideas of alternative media. And Zuckerberg said, if it pleases the crown, I will do it. And he's done it. I think it went into effect today. You'll start noticing you're not going to be seeing very much news in your Facebook feed. You're going to see a lot of, your friends, like 6,000 pictures of your friends on their honeymoon. 6,000 pictures of like a cat or a piece of cake. And so it goes. That's what Facebook is going to turn back into. That's the strength, that's the power of the algorithm on a social network. The internet gatekeepers are going to be able to tell you what you can look at. Now look, some people are going to go around that, and of course there's still going to be organic traffic going to the anti-media. Some people, they get on the internet and they go, I'm going to go to the antimedia.org and see what's really going on in the news today. And there are thousands of people that do that, tens of thousands. But it's not enough to pay the bills for the anti-media. It's not going to be enough to get that flow of advertising dollars coming into the site, which pays the overhead, which pays the writers, and allows the anti-media to function. So as Nick was explaining last night, we're switching over to Steemit. We're also going to be starting a Patreon account. Patreon is basically a kind of a crowdfunding thing that it allows, people to directly connect with their followers and get donations. And we're going to do that too. But this is serious. This is serious. This is not fear-mongering. This is not us, bitching about the latest Facebook algorithm. I mean, that's what it is. But this is legit. This is for real. Facebook is slicing and dicing their algorithm right now, and they're making it to where alternative news is going to be filtered out. I think it's going to be all news, but let's be honest. NBC has a pretty direct pathway into the American mind. It's through the television. And of course, with net neutrality gone, NBC and companies like it will be able to pay their internet service provider to fast track their content so that you see it above everything else. Anti-media doesn't have that luxury. We relied upon social media to be an equitable place where the strength of an idea wins out. Where the strength of an idea and the power of that idea to connect minds together, minds that think critically. But they're saying we don't deserve that. Censorship by corporation. Who knew? Who would have thought that the internet was going to turn into a place of fast lanes for rich companies, counter speech psyops by the internet gatekeepers? This is the future, people. This is what we have to. It's only going to get worse. The internet is not going to be a free and open marketplace of ideas. It's going to be a corporate and government-controlled fast lane where they shape the narrative. And what it's going to take is we have to get smart and we have to start finding alternative ways of communicating with each other. One of those is going to be this decentralized cryptocurrency-based network called Steemit. If you haven't been on there, get on right now. It's cool. And here's the cool thing about it. Not only are you going to get to, keep in contact with people and find out a lot of new information that you probably never even thought about. You're going to learn a lot about cryptocurrency. You're going to learn a lot about ideas of decentralization. You can actually earn money through your posts, through your comments on posts. You earn it in something called Steem, and that Steem can be converted to US dollars. There are people making thousands of dollars on Steemit. Now, reality check, of course, you have to be on there for a little while and you have to earn a certain amount of clout on there before you start making a lot of money. I've been on there for about 6 months and I don't have a very good ranking on there, and so my posts don't really generate that much money, maybe a couple dollars. But that will change. That will grow. But yeah, Zuckerberg just straight up said, Facebook pages will likely see a decrease in their reach, video watch time, and referral traffic. Pages posting content that quote-unquote people generally don't react to or comment on will likely see the most significant drop in engagement. What is he doing? He's like this mad scientist, except that he's not really that radical in what he's doing. What kind of like mad scientist entrepreneur hands over the fruit of his loins, the love of his life, this project, Facebook, his algorithm, the thing he's worked his whole life for? What kind of mad scientist just hands that over to the government and says, all right, you can fuck with it. Yeah, sure, whatever. I just don't understand it. I don't get it. I'm sure there's some shit going on that we don't understand. I'm sure the pressure has been immense on him. But this is the kind of, test of history where you have to stand up and do the right thing, and Mark Zuckerberg did not do the right thing. I personally will not be on Facebook at all. I mean, I already wasn't barely on there at all anymore because I can't stand, the groupthink on there. And that's only going to get worse now. And by groupthink, of course, I mean this kind of echo chamber of confirmation bias, where you think something and all your friends think something, and you don't let anything in to challenge that idea. Guess what? People used to think the earth was flat. People used to think we were the center of the universe. They used to think that the white race was superior. People have believed some pretty messed up things in the past. There's probably a lot of things we believe right now that aren't true. But we don't know it because we're not being exposed to alternative ideas. It's very important that humans continue to consider the alternative. It's very important that the human race continues to think outside the box about ourselves and about the universe. There's a lot of things we don't understand right now. We don't understand what dark matter is, dark energy. We don't understand how human consciousness works. But that's going to change, especially, with artificial intelligence. we're going to get into a pretty crazy era here. Unfortunately, right now, artificial intelligence is being used to limit human thought. Some of these AI algorithms are exactly what's responsible for limiting the reach of some of these social network sites. Now, of course, this isn't really artificial intelligence. This is algorithmic intelligence. Strong artificial intelligence is going to be much, much different. But yeah, so that's where we're at. It's certainly a dark day. And, I wish I had better news, but for right now, that's what I got for you, which is get on Steemit, sign up for the Anti-Media newsletter so you can get updates. Don't expect to see anything through Facebook anymore because they're not going to let our posts through. But Nick isn't going to give up. Carrie Wedler, the editor-in-chief, she's not going to give up. S.M. Gibson, the other founder, he's not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. Anti-Media isn't going to go anywhere. Now, you may not be able to see it because Facebook is going to be putting up a wall so that you can't see your news feed, your true news feed. That doesn't mean we're not there. We're going to keep writing articles every day. We're just going to have to diversify where we go a little bit, because we can't rely on the gatekeepers anymore. Keep your eyes peeled for counter speech. If you're going to stay on Facebook, I personally will not be on there. But if you're going to stay on Facebook, keep an eye out for what they're calling counter speech. And that's advertorial propaganda. Unique propaganda. I mean, we're not talking about like a government message, or maybe it is, but they're just filtering, or that they're letting through. We're talking about Facebook, Google, and Twitter are literally going to be creating proprietary propaganda, their own propaganda, to counter hate speech. Yeah, ostensibly, do we want to fight terrorism? Of course. Do we want to fight hate speech? Yeah, that's always a good thing, but at what cost? Kids growing up now are going to have their spectrum of thought severely limited. And that's scary. Very scary. Big Brother is a weird consortium of companies and defense contractors and the government. It's way more complex than anything I think Orwell had imagined it was going to be. But we're going to keep fighting. We're going to go on. We're all in it for the long haul. Anti-media is not going anywhere. And we'll get the last laugh. Actually, I don't know if we'll get the last laugh against the corporatocracy, but we're going to keep fighting. And so what I'd like you to do is to check into Steemit and keep looking for the anti-media posts. Thank you for listening. Much love, and see you guys soon. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.